It's 21 minutes past 10. Verity Gorman with you this Friday. Well, since COVID has hit, I've had a lot of virtual catch-ups. I've even done job interviews online. I've attended quiz nights. And I attended my first virtual funeral last week. And it was a really special experience because the funeral was in Northern Ireland, so I probably wouldn't have been able to attend anyway. But it was great to actually be there virtually. And we all got sent very specific instructions, turn off your camera, turn off your microphone, and then just be part of it. But even though I thought the instructions were very clear, not everyone managed to follow them. There was Frank. I don't even know who Frank was, but by the end of the funeral, I'd seen up Frank's nose, I'd seen in Frank's ear, and I'd had a tour around Frank's house, and it did make me chuckle a bit. But I did think, what is the etiquette around video chats, and what are the common mistakes people are making when they are online? Well, Peter Dew is a public speaking expert, and he's going to tell us about the do's and don'ts of video chats. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Verity.
Tell me, what are the biggest video chat fails you've seen?
And you've mentioned some of them, and that is looking up people's noses.
Yeah,
and that
it's
comes
bad.
to camera positioning, position it above your eyes. The other one is the cat that jumps on the lap, the kid that walks in, the husband that walks past the door in their underwear. We've all seen those on TV.
Yes, and they do give you a bit of a chuckle, but if you're in an important meeting, it's not a good look. So let's talk about some of the, the common scenarios that we're using things like Zoom and Teams chats for, funerals. It's a new sort of thing, the idea that they're being streamed. What advice do you have for people if they're attending a virtual funeral?
With the virtual funerals, and I think this is here to stay. You've mentioned Ireland, so now even if it's face-to-face, people will be able to zoom in from around the world. So my simple rules would be to mute yourself, and if you are an important person, maybe have some notes, because sometimes people the funeral director asks, would anyone else like to say some words about the dearly departed? And if you're caught on the hop and you don't have those notes and you think you might be asked, it's nice to have notes. Opening the camera, I would have thought it would have been okay to have the camera open with virtual funerals, but I would dress as if I was there. So, a nice shirt and a nice coat, the same as if I was in person. Turning off the camera it means the family don't see who's participating, who's online. So I guess that's a moot point whether we have the camera on or off with funerals. And background noise, if you've got kids attending funerals, they can sometimes make a noise. What are they going to be playing with games so that they don't interrupt the funeral, virtual and face-to-face?
What about job interviews? What do people need to think about if they're doing a virtual job interview?
With a virtual job interview, really important to look down the camera, look at the interview, the people conducting the interview. And one of the mistakes is that we tend to look at our screens, and with virtual, you can have cheat notes and you can keep reading your notes without them necessarily knowing you're reading notes, but the eye contact will give that away. So even though we're having a virtual meeting, I encourage people to look down the barrel of the camera. The little tip I use is I use a Postit note with a smiley face that I stick behind my laptop if I'm using a laptop camera, but I also have a standalone camera and I have a big face behind that, and that reminds me that's where my audience is and that's where I need to look.
Because it can also be quite distracting because you generally have a little screen that's got your own face on it. So it can be quite distracting sort of trying to avoid looking at that as well.
Yes, indeed. And that's where the smiley face or something that just triggers you to keep looking up. Now, you don't have to have that 100% looking down the barrel, 100% eye contact. That becomes a bit artificial, but the majority of the time, especially when you're answering questions in job interview, should be down the barrel of the camera. And of course, my philosophy with dress and for job interviews is dress as if you were meeting face to face. And you should be in line with the dress of the interview panel. So a bit of homework, what's the interview panel going to wear when they offer you an interview? If it's a mining job interview, are the interview people going to be in their high-vis vests? Then that might be appropriate if you're having a face-to-face one. On a virtual one, just dress accordingly to match the interview panel.
So are tracky pants below okay if they can't see them?
Yes, it is, as long as you don't get caught out. One of the things I do when I present and when I attend meetings is I stand, and I've got a standing desk, and it just makes me more authentic, raises my energy and my vocal quality. Sometimes the camera does get, the waistband, depending where you're standing. So don't stand up and be caught with the footy shorts or the boxers or the bathers on.
And what about, those everyday Teams chats with colleagues? It seems like there's always someone who forgets to put on mute. What's your advice if you're meeting with colleagues virtually?
Yeah, become very good at turning the mute on and off. The other thing is people start to speak and they forgot that they've still got their mute on. So become proficient at mute on, mute off. There are shortcuts that you can learn, and you just have to toggle one button, depending whether it's Teams or Zoom or WebEx, and that opens your microphone. Press it again and it'll close your microphone. I think with meetings and when I'm running training, have your camera open. It's really annoying as a chairperson of a meeting or a presenter talking to blank screens. So I'd encourage, especially with meetings, do have your cameras open so that people can see you and participate and look in the meeting. And along with that, so do you bring the hamburger to the meeting and, the fish and chips and the big 2-litre Slurpee drink? I try and avoid eating and drinking at virtual meetings, although I will have water just to lubricate my voice in case I get a little bit dry.
Yeah, great advice there. So you'll be in the Pilbara next week as well. Tell me what you're doing up here.
Yes, I'm looking forward to some warmer weather. And on Tuesday, I'm running a lunch and learn for the Karratha Chamber and District's Commerce and Industry, 11:30 to 1:30. And I'm sure that they'd welcome other people to attend. Just contact the Chamber in Karratha. And on Monday, I'm running a public speaking workshop. I really love to help people be confident and effective in getting their message across through the spoken word.
Thanks so much for your time this morning, Peter.
My pleasure.
Peter Dew, there's a public speaking expert just sharing a few tips of, what to do when you're on a video chat, and most importantly, what not to do. Leave the fish and chips for the lunchroom.